I think I've got a lot too much glow. I'm gonna turn my glow down, even though I'm sliding off camera
Okay.
while we're live. There we go. I'm turning my glow down.
There you go.
So
Okay.
I'm appear to be less angelic.
Okay, we are alive.
We are definitely live.
Okay. Hey, welcome. Power of You.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Welcome back, folks. It's great to have you here. I'm Blaine Bartlett.
I'm Dolan White.
And we are your hosts with the most.
Yeah, I think it's most of something.
Most of something. Sure. I have no idea what.
This is our
question.
Yeah, our relatively irreverent look at leadership and focus on leadership and decisions and all kinds of stuff. So here we are.
That's where we're at today. So Welcome to the show. Okay. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be looking at continuing what we did last week. This whole question about how do you make decisions, high quality decisions, and why would you even want to pay attention to that question and consider it? Well, the short answer is, your future depends on the decisions that you make today. That's the net of it, as far as I can tell. And most people don't make high quality decisions. They make ready, fire, aim decisions.
Yes. Yeah. There's that, or it's the old executive mantra of yelling pull. So, and hopefully you're hitting it with a wide spread. But anyway, for those of you, that was a shotgun term. We're out shifting into weapons. So
the power of you.
Power of you.
So you're going to be with us for about 45 minutes today. Hopefully you'll stick around because we got some stuff to talk about right near the very end here.
Lunch.
That is all good. So this whole question of decisions, I mean, we call this series The Power of You for a very specific reason.
Yeah.
We are each in the process of creating on an ongoing basis the reality that we live in. I don't know a simpler way of defining what goes on in the world. It's both an individual, but it's also a collective mindset that gets expressed outwardly. And that's what we're looking at here. So the power of you is inherent when we start looking at the quality and nature of your decisions.
Yeah. And this is, it's funny because, when we started with this concept last week, Blaine, and it just, it dawned on me that leaders lead decisions. One of the, as the leader, you lead decisions. And I was thinking, again, this week, a little bit about coming into it, about what that means and what happens, right? And so there's things that you deal with as a leader. The very first thing is how do you prioritize initiatives amid competing demands? So when you're making decisions, there's demands. There's things going on, and demands are outside of they can be hidden from people. There's demands that are the lesson I learned a long time ago, especially around money. There's people competing for the money in your company. So when you're making a decision around an initiative that you want to work on, there's competing demands from a prioritization perspective. There's how do you balance growth and elegance, operational efficiency through that decision. And we love this, the third one.
Navigating leadership and team dynamics. The old organizational development joke is we went away and we designed the perfect organization and we screwed it up when we put people in it. I saw something came across today. Everybody was nodding, but nobody was agreeing.
Oh, that's cool.
I
love that.
That's kind of what leaders run into in the team dynamics. And this kind of goes back into the whole notion of competing demands. People will hear what you're saying and they're going to go, no, I'm not signing on to that. I got other stuff to pay attention to over here, which actually kind of, defeats the whole purpose, when you start thinking about it. So decisions are one thing. How do you implement them? And that's part and parcel of being able to drive innovation while you're managing risk, because that risk is not just financial. It's the risk to morale, it's the risk to engagement, and all of these sorts of things. And if trust isn't in place, then trust and risk kind of go hand in hand here. You've got a big kibosh on your innovative component in your organization.
Boy, innovation grinds to a halt.
Absolutely.
Just completely grinds. Well, and then the last one, then we'll kind of get into the meat and potatoes, but the last one is just, anytime you're making a decision inside of the business is there's external pressures and then there's stakeholder expectations. I had that experience yesterday. Had a great call yesterday with a gentleman in Franklin Covey, and we were talking about external expectations, right? What's going on with the external pressures and then stakeholder expectations and the gap between the two and what has to grant permission, what can't be done I'm feeling Italian today. I got my hands.
Yes, I'm noticing this.
So let's see. Cup of coffee number 9. Anyway. So that these are things as a leader as you're stepping in, and each week there's different stuff that we'll have in here when we talk about this. But
yeah, so this is number 2 on the decision tree that we're working with, and the idea here is you want to have high quality decisions, and because decisions lead to choices. Decisions and choices are different animals.
Yeah,
decisions point you down a pathway. And then there are choices that get made on that path that will either keep you on the path or derail you, very fundamentally. So few things are worse than sprinting in the wrong direction enthusiastically. It's you want to have a way to define, is this the most effective, most appropriate path that we can be going down right now? You come to a fork in the road. Which one do you take? That's where decisions come into play.
Yeah, I'll put a shameless plug in. So there's Keith Cunningham wrote a book called The Road Less Stupid, one of my favorite titles of a book. And if you as a listener haven't read that book yet, pick that book yet. But that's your point. It is that point about, well, it happens in my relationship of being absolutely incorrect, but thoroughly committed.
Truly. I promise.
Yeah. It happens.
So we've got a couple of reference models, and for those of you that are new to listening to both Dylan and I here, these are kind of foundational models that we work with our clients. The left-hand side, leaders operate in a universe, and that universe is pretty discrete. And then there's foundations upon which this universe stands. I mean, which is where the operational components actually come into play here. And without going into a whole lot of detail, we touch on this very deeply when we do our leadership challenge, which we'll talk about a little bit later here. But the top half of this pyramid, the leadership universe, is the one that most people are typically familiar with. It's vision, strategy, and tactics, the why, what, and how. And this is where a lot of decisions actually, what a lot of decisions address. How to implement our vision. Well, there's a strategic component to that, and then we get into the choices that are made once the decisions about strategy have been put in place here. The choices are the tactical components. The previous slide, making sure we're on the right path here, and the one before that, all of these things that kind of come into play with leaders, those are all lived, and I mean literally lived, in this area that we call mindset.
Yeah.
And mindset dictates everything. It truly does dictate everything. It's not an exaggeration. So the body of our work, with our clients, is organized around mindset, which taps into the creative spirit and soul of the business. And that's where you get this spark of innovation that comes into play here. So that's in a nutshell what this leadership universe frames out, when we're working with our clients. The 4 pillars model, Dr. White.
Thank you very much. So the 4 pillar, when we talk about mindset and the spirit of business, there is, I think mindset, kind of like the word leadership. There's words that get used that are broad context, and that could be a brain surgeon, a dentist, a chiropractor, a podiatrist, could be lots of different kinds of stuff. But from when we talk about mindset, really the focus of the 4 pillars is, so what do you do? What steps do you take? How do you ensure that mindset is built? How do you work with people and create deep and lasting relationships so that you can move forward, so you can scale and you can move at velocity? And that's really what the 4 pillars talk about. So in the leadership universe, we talk about the components of what are these things? What is mindset and why is that important? Why does that matter? For the sake of what? I guess could be a term that we could use. And then the 4 pillars really focuses on, okay, so now how do you move that forward, not only in your organization, but with you personally, which applies to all kinds of aspects of your life. So that's, in short, what the 4 pillars brings as a benefit.
And then all of this, yeah, again, we're talking about decisions and decision making and understanding just the nature of it. Part and parcel of this has to do with really beginning to understand fully what leadership is. Leaders cause movement, and they cause movement based on the decisions that they make in their organizations and that they ask people to actually sign on to. Leadership is an activity. Leaders cause movement. By definition, everybody's a leader because everybody's always causing movement.
Yeah.
Is it effective? Is it movement that is taking you in the direction that you want to go? And that's where leadership comes into play. And we call, or define, leadership in this way. It's the activity of influencing. There's 5 pieces to this. Influencing other people in order to co-create coordinated movement in pursuit of a worthy ideal. Influencing is about presence. Yeah. Before I open my mouth, what kind of movement have I caused? I walk in the room. Do people move into me or do they move away from me? Very simple, dimensions here. Co-creation, ownership transfer. You can think of this as co-authorship, where it's not my decision, it's not my objective, it's not my goal, my vision. It's now ours. And because it's now ours, all of a sudden we've got people emotionally invested in making sure it's something that is, that gets created, which moves us into the coordinated movement piece. Leaders take organizations and people into places they've never been before. That's the hallmark of effective leadership, is uncharted territory. It's a signal. It signals that we're growing. Guaranteed, we're going to step on each other's toes. We can't not, because we don't know the territory well. So coordinated movement, it's how do we do this dance together? Yeah. How do we agree to disagree? How do we actually, work with conflict, because conflict will be there? Doesn't mean anything's broken. It just means that there's a conversation that needs to be had. And that conversation is linked to pursuit of a worthy ideal. So the pursuit of a worthy ideal is what we get to co-create together. And this is a distinction, this definition of pursuit of a worthy ideal moves us away from motivation and into the domain of inspiration, which is where high quality emotional engagement exists. So this is the leadership definition. Decisions that you make are a function of how you define and work with this definition.
Yeah, this is it. And this is a really important slide, because to your point, that's a great explanation of what it all means. But as a leader, if you're looking at this, and you'll hear me say this over and over and over, look at each of these 5 components that Blaine talked about, and it will help you look at and say, so am I influencing? How am I showing up? Well, who else? What are the others that I'm working? What is others? Are we truly co-creating? Am I asking? Are we involving? Am I listening? And is it coordinated? Right? Do we have movement? And then what is the worthy ideal? What's that end state that we're moving towards? And the worthy ideal isn't your mission, to Blaine's point, it's not the mission, it's not your core values, it's that last piece. So
that worthy ideal is
into.
You just did that. Yeah. It's for the sake of what? So what are we making decisions about?
Yep.
What is it moving us towards? So what's the reason? And this is tip of the hat to Simon Sinek here. This is beyond why. This is really a question. For the sake of what are we doing this? For the sake of what am I asking us to make a decision around this particular area? For the sake of what is not your vision. It's not your goals or objectives. It's something more fundamental. It is the answer to what matters. What really matters here? And this is where the worthy ideal comes into play here. You can't tell somebody what this is. You have to be inquiring. You have to have questions in place. And this becomes part of a challenge for leaders, because it requires some vulnerability and it requires trust. Specifically trust on the part of yourself, trusting that you can handle what happens when you start asking questions and opening the door up here a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at. And the way you actually frame decisions makes a big difference here, because it's an invitational process, not just unilateral. I made this decision. Yeah, I'm the boss. Go for it. You're looking at influencing pieces.
Yes. Well said. Well said. That's like the third time today Simon came up today like that. That's like the third time today I've heard Simon. We need to call him and just say, dude,
hey,
come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Do you want royalties for this or what?
Come on. Come on. What are we doing? So we've talked about in this, this is an arc. It's a decision-making arc. And we know that there's a million moving parts through this and all kinds of other things that happen. But last week we talked about, does this decision align with our mission and core values? And we spent some time. If you didn't hear that, go back and listen to it. But we talked about the difference between mission and core values. That's a really important conversation. Two very different things.
Absolutely.
And we just finished talking about for the sake of what, and every week that number one item is always going to be deep black, because you start there. If you haven't started there, you're going to break everywhere you go. But this week we wanted to spend a time asking a question: does this decision contribute to our primary goal?
Yep. Which
Not
you
end
can't.
goal.
Right. Not right. Exactly. And you can't have a primary goal unless you're clear about for the sake of what.
Exactly. Yeah, they are. Well, I was going to say kissing cousins, originally from Alabama, but I can't say that kind of things. So, all right. So
goals and objectives.
Yeah,
go ahead. Yeah. No. Hey, we're highly trained professionals. We have practiced.
Exactly.
We have rehearsed this. Dolan, it's yours.
People can tell this is like we've honed in on who's talking about what. But let's talk about goals. Goals embody your long-term vision and mission. That's a key piece about it. When you're thinking about goals, right? Goals really, they are that big picture. They're that thing that you're climbing the ladder to, that you're aspiring towards. They're your long-term vision and mission. So when you're asking about the decision and the reason why the last bit in here, you want your organization to achieve, if we take this apart just for a moment, it is that aspiration that you're moving towards. That is the goal. And when you're moving towards your vision and mission, if your decision, you have to ask that question immediately of not only for the sake of what, but and understand the mission and core values. Because remember, we talked about understanding mission and core values from last week. So now the goal is in alignment. Is this goal in alignment with my mission and core, my mission, and that worthy aspiration that we're moving towards, that we're looking to accomplish as an organization? And that's the important thing about that, because your organization, to Blaine's point, is made up of people. The hard part of it would be neat if we could just lead ourselves. Matter of fact, I do really good. Matter of fact, probably not do good leading myself. But anyway.
Most people don't lead themselves particularly well because they don't know themselves well. And this is where the mindset question, really resonates.
Yeah.
Why am I leading? Yeah, literally, why am I leading? The question has to get answered, by the leader.
Yeah.
What's the difference I'm trying to make by stepping into this role? I'm leading all the time anyway. I'm always causing movement.
Yeah.
So if I'm in a titular role, or does this become something that I pay attention to? Long-term vision. There's a word here that's very interesting. Goals embody. They don't stand outside of. They embody the long-term vision and mission of the organization. So anytime I'm setting a goal for my organization or for myself, I want to answer the question, how does this serve moving us one step closer to what we say is important? And why does that matter? Why does that matter? Both of those questions come into play here, which begins to inform the objectives. Because these are the tactical executables that we end up. Goals are not executable. Objectives become executable.
Right. Because now we're talking about, now there was in the leadership universe, right? Mindset, spirit are components of it. But now if we think of the traditional layers, now we're talking about things like, how do we translate that strategic vision? What's the actions that we take? What small steps do we take every day to move forward? Not not the minutia of work. If you're in old project management, building a work breakdown structure and the who and the what and all that kind of stuff. But what we're looking for is that we're ensuring that every step we take aligns with the mission and reinforces the core values. So we want to embody, and we're reinforcing between these two steps, and that's a component of it. Go ahead, you were going to say something.
Yeah, the idea here of these tactical decisions that we make, these concrete action steps we take. We're making decisions, and when we're talking about decisions, the default for many people in thinking about this from an organizational perspective, oftentimes is big decisions. CapEx expenditures, acquisition of resources, strategic directions, or no, that's not the kind of that is partly what we're talking about. But more importantly, though, when you start looking at the nature and number of decisions that are made in most organizations, 90+% of them are small, little, day-to-day decisions. Little by little, a little becomes a lot. And it's these little decisions, they're not necessarily linked to a for the sake of what, or explicitly linked to a goal in a way that the goal has been defined as mattering for this vision or purpose, or vision or mission. Over time, we start veering off course because it's these little decisions that are taking us away from what we want, because the leaders, the managers, the team leader, the person on the floor has not made a decision that is consistent with where we say we want to go. And that's the challenge that we want to land here, is how do you begin to address that, to ensure that the decisions, the small decisions, are being made in alignment with a for the sake of what, that serves the vision and mission.
It's funny you say that, because I think in organizations, the leaders lose track, people lose track. We'll forget the word leaders, but because everybody inside of an organization makes a decision. Decisions. And one of the important things and we'll talk about this at the very end of this series around decision making before we do the next session, but which is in weeks and weeks and weeks away, which is creating a framework by which that decision process, that thinking around making decision, remains consistent throughout the organization, be it large or small. Because even when I love that you mentioned things like CapEx, and if you're a 7, 8, 10 figure, one figure, whatever size of the organization you are, and you're thinking about those kinds of decisions, it is ensuring that structure stays, because there's a million little decisions that go into that one big thing. And that's that structure and alignment. That's why I love that. We use that word a lot, but alignment is critically important, because alignment impacts mindset. Alignment impacts spirit, which we'll go on. So
which is perfect. I mean, it's a great segue to this particular content. Defining who leadership is an inside out process. I have to embody, literally, I become a symbol of that which I say I want to have happen in my organization. People look at me, they take out the glasses in the morning when I walk in, and they go, what's important to him or her? And then they organize their behavior according to what meaning they've made up about that. So we use decisions to define ourselves, in large part. The decisions of what I pay attention to in an organization, the decisions about what I talk about in an organization, the decision about how I show up during the day, all of those things. How do these decisions directly propel me to our long-term goal? I mean, we can go into a lot of detail on each one of these bullet points, and you can read them as well as Dolan and I can talk about them here. But as you look at these, you're looking at movement. You're looking at movement. In what ways does the current mindset support a long-term vision? So, if I run into a barrier, that's probably not the problem itself. It's something else going on, such that this problem, quote unquote problem, has cropped up, and it's usually embedded in a mindset question. How does this embody the pillars of trust and autonomy? And when we go back to the four pillars here, all of these things come into play here. How is our proactive, growth-focused mindset reflected in this decision, assuming we've got a proactive, growth-focused mindset to begin with, which if you don't, you're going to be missing huge opportunity to be successful. I'm going to just
Indeed.
kind of drop that in here. Yeah. So this moves us into being responsive rather than reactive to market conditions and exigencies that are coming in at us. Then the final, what potential risks and obstacles might derail our progress? This is in the context of goal setting. Now, when we're defining the larger piece here, and then we start crunching that down. How do we go about achieving that goal, which moves us into our objective set?
Yeah, so when we're talking about objectives, we still similarly with the questions, right? What key performance indicators will confirm the decision is advancing our objectives? Not all decisions are good. One of the greatest things about business is there's an anticipated outcome, and then there's an actual outcome. Because there's people involved, and there's market circumstances, and there's there's a lot of different things that can happen. So how am I going to measure? How do I know that this decision is advancing the objective? How do I know that? So what key things are we going to be looking for? What mindset, what adjustments do we have to make to overcome? And adjustments are mindset shifts. Notice the key words in front of it. What mindset shifts or adjustments might we need to overcome potential obstacles? Because obstacles are going to happen, and you're either going to go through them, around them, under them, right? Obstacles don't stop us. They just help us pick a different path. So what mindset things are we going to talk about? What actionable steps does this decision create? How do we monitor progress? And then what potential obstacals, what things can come up? I love it. Would it be succinct today? We have a promise. Blaine and I have a commitment to each other to be succinct on this call. But I had a blast on a call yesterday with a company that I won't mention by name, but we were talking about this particular topic of establishing objectives and the interdepartmental nature of two departments that don't trust each other, don't want to trust each other, have no desire to trust each other, because some person that worked there 3 years ago who's no longer employed by the company impacted the other department negatively, and therefore anybody in that other department is permanently tainted. So what obstacles are going to impact the objective? How do you work through that? And you got to ask yourself these questions. So if you're listening to this and it's a recording, rewind and screenshot these 2 slides, so that when you're going through the decision process, think of these questions. What questions are you going to consistently ask so that you consistently move your results forward at this phase of the decision-making process? And I love these questions.
Oh, these are great stuff. And when I used to lead encounter groups years and years and years ago, back in one of my other careers.
What?
And goal setting and objective setting was part of what we would put in place there. And it was fascinating to me. When somebody would say, okay, this is the outcome I want to produce, I would ask the question, okay, if you were going to screw it up, how would you do it? And they could always answer the question. They could always, it's kind of, well, I'm not going to screw it up. I know you won't. I mean, but if you were going to, what would happen? What would you? They could fundamentally answer that question. That's where the mindset comes into play, because people know already where the cliff edge is. And they also know what happens when they step over that cliff edge. It's going to cause all kinds of havoc, but they know where that cliff edge is. So from a leadership perspective, one of the things that I've learned and I work with my clients on is to be able to bring this question to the table. And it's not a negative question, because initially it's kind of, why would I want to ask how we're going to screw it up? Doesn't that set it? No, it doesn't set in place anything, except it uncovers what's already present. And if you can make it visible, now you can do something proactively before you step up to that cliff edge.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that. Yeah, I love that exercise in a business when you're working with your team, and particularly working at this phase of a decision process, because generally you're also making decisions around strategy and other kinds of, there's bigger things that are occurring. I love that exercise. Put everybody in a group, give everybody 5 minutes, and come up with every reason why you could fail.
Yep.
Come up with, and then come back, and then we won't get into the next steps after that, because if you'd like to know that, You
Sign
can
up.
1-800 Blaine and don't anyway.
1-800 Blaine and Dolan.
100 Blaine and don't. So good luck dialing that number. I'm not sure what you would get if you dialed that
I'm
number.
not sure either.
Either. But anyway, but I do love that because people do, because we do know if
Yep.
I'm going to lose weight and I'm driving through McDonald's and eating Big Macs, I am not going to reach my goal. I know that that's not going to happen.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
your willingness to shift your mindset and actions so that you accomplish that outcome.
Now, how am I going to screw that up? I'm going to buy a tub of ice cream.
Well,
There you go.
Yeah. It's on the flavor. Anyhow, we can
There
go on there.
But we're talking about consequences here. If we're not identifying some of these things, when we make a decision and we don't particularly pay attention to how are we going to screw this up, or what are some of the exigencies that might kind of complicate or compromise what we're doing here, we end up having misalignment of efforts. This is everybody nodded their head, nobody agreed. That sort of a thing comes into play here. Resource waste. We got to go back to the drawing board again. I cannot tell you the times that I've had leaders that I work with really recognize when we started getting into the work that we're doing with when we're coaching, how much time they spent and energy they spent and money that they spend cleaning up after themselves.
Oh. Yeah.
Why'd you do that? I don't know. Well, you knew better. Yeah, I knew better. Well, why'd you do it? I don't know. Mindset kicked in and resources had to be diverted to fix it.
Yep. Then date slip, all kinds of other stuff. Number 3, lack of direction.
Yep.
It comes down to focus. Remember, we talked about the definition of leadership, influencing others to co-create. So lack of direction. Without that focus, then people, they wander off. People will begin to tell each other their own stories. And they will begin to make their own decisions about the actions they take, and they will wander off. And the last one is erosion of culture. One of the challenges, and we heard this. Blaine and I were together last week for a little while, and one of the things that we heard, I heard a gentleman when I was sitting out on the patio as he was walking by, and it was, another brilliant idea, and this too shall pass. Erosion of culture when you're making decisions that aren't in alignment with what we've talked about, that don't have trust and communication and don't have the underpinnings for mindset and spirit. You erode the culture of the company, and you erode the culture of the team, the culture of the individual, because everything boils down. We are not top down, we are bottom up. Yep. Everything boils down from that individual. So one of the consequences then is you erode the culture. When you lose culture, it's a long way back.
Tip of the hat to somebody here. I think it was Ken Blanchard, maybe not. Warren Bennis, I think. Culture will eat strategy for lunch. And
I think you said that. I think it was Warren. Yeah.
Yeah. So we want to pay attention to this because decisions, from a culture perspective, decisions actually begin to be a thread that runs through it, and you're creating a fabric called culture. And you do that with the threads of decisions that you're making and actually aligning around and insisting objectively, when you set objectives, that all of this kind of is bespoke. It all matches. It all is, the weave is intentional. The weave is intentional. If I could just kind of extend the metaphor here.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Nicely.
Thank you. Hey, I'm a trained professional. Don't try this at home.
All right.
This kind of brings up what's the next step for us. Now, this, we're doing this once a week. Yeah. So we're just dropping some nuggets in here. At least we hope that they're nuggets and not fool's gold, because we together have got almost 90 plus years of experience doing this stuff. This isn't theoretical. We actually are in the trenches, with our clients and with our own organizations, having done a lot of this. So at the risk of throwing fire hoses up here that you have to consume all kinds of stuff from, we're parsing this out so that it's somewhat digestible, but more importantly, it creates questions in people's minds. For me personally, and I think I can speak for Dolan on this, we're far more interested in positioning things so that they generate questions for you rather than providing answers to you that may or may not fit for your situation. We want you to be questioning, how am I leading? How am I doing what I'm doing? If I'm trying to scale my organization, it's not about being a better version of what I was yesterday. It's about transforming my organization so that it now looks, feels, breathes, acts differently than it did last month. It's a different organization, not a better version of what was, but a transformed expression of our purpose because we've grown. That's what we're looking at.
Yes.
So how do you do that? How do you do that? That's what we're looking here. So
what's next?
What's next? Nothing happens till something moves.
Exactly. This is deliberately in here for emotions. Like, one of the cool things about being human is we have a tendency to sit in and we hear stuff and we kind of go, this is really cool. I really like this. And we don't do anything about it. We don't take an action. So this particular slide talks about, only 20 to 30% of participants in any personal development. And this is a personal development half hour, 45 minutes with Blaine and I. You're here to learn something, and hopefully we're teaching you something. Only about 20 to 30% of people do something about it. And one of the things that they can do is they can be within a group, and they can also extend their learning experience. So Blaine and I want to invite you to something.
And that something is actually quite simple. It's free. It's a leadership transformation challenge. It's not a leadership betterment program. It's a leadership transformation challenge. This is a free program. We do this about roughly every 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And the topical area is leadership transformation. But content-wise, we vary it. Leadership is a broad topic. We can cover all kinds of stuff, and we do, which is why we're doing these more than once. There we go. Smooth the esophagus here a bit. The next one we're doing is March 24th through the 28th. We're doing this at 9:00 a.m. Pacific time. Every day in that period, starts at 9 a.m., runs generally right about an hour. Okay, so we're not saying give us your firstborn here. It's you got an hour of your time. That's an investment. What we're going to be doing is a deep dive on some of the topical areas that we work with on these Power of You programs. But it's in a window of 5 days. We take that definition of leadership, influencing in order to co-create coordinated movement in pursuit of a worthy ideal, and we chunk it down. We chunk that down and to give you some action. And it's a challenge. This isn't just talking heads. We're not going to be talking at you. We're going to put you to work.
Yep.
We're going to put you to work. There's a workbook. There's data that you get. There's material that you get that we begin to look at. How do you put this into motion in your organization? Those sorts of things. There's conversations that are, it's not just an open forum. We're going to be putting you into small work groups in this challenge in the time that we've got allotted here. It's a working challenge, and it sets up a 30-day process for you to work with. So the 5-day challenge puts the foundation pieces in, then you're set free to go do a 30-day work project in your organization to see where this fits and how it actually gets leveraged.
Yep, it's the intention is to Blaine's point. The intention is this is not a show up and listen. This is a show up and be prepared to meet other people, talk about the challenges, work through worksheets. You get to go home with homework pretty much every day, and we have a great time. And we have a lot of fun doing this. We've had in the challenges that we've done in the past, we've had just some brilliant people from all over the world participate in this, and it's just been a lot of fun.
We've had people from Finland, from Uganda, from Japan.
Oh gosh!
Australia. I mean, And these are business leaders. These are folks that are curious about how do I do this more effectively in my organization. I'm not interested in being a better version of me. I want to actually transform what we're doing and how we're doing it. That's a big distinction. That's a big distinction. So invitation, come join us. March 24th through the 28th, 9 a.m. Pacific time. We will be putting some registration details up on all of these social media platforms, and feel free to ping us if you're noticing us on LinkedIn as an example. Dolan and I both have a very large presence there, so yeah, just send us a message. Send us a message if you're picking us up on an Instagram platform. Do the same thing. Just a DM will work great. We'll respond and give you the information. This is also true on Facebook. So got all of them covered. We got them all covered.
Exactly. We'll be where you are. I think it's
just drive me. They need me everywhere. Just go.
We'll be there. It's a lot of people say, yeah, you got to go here in order. No, we'll just be where whatever's easiest for you. Come on, and we're happy to talk to you and tell you about it. And we'd love to have you participate in the challenge with us. So on that note,
thank you for participating. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for some of the questions. I know that we had a couple of folks that were actually providing some things. So in terms of comments and feedback, so I appreciate that. Tim Shepich, I want to thank you.
Tim.
Tim dropped in here and has put a lot of stuff.
I'll give you that, Tim. Miss you, dude.
Okay, buddy. Great nuggets. The chewy nougat right in the middle here.
All right, everybody. Enjoy your Thursday.
And we'll see you next Thursday at noon here on this same channel.
See you then. Mr. Bartlett, have a good day.
You too, buddy. Bye.